I'd suggest we do it more often, but it's way too much work. Welcome to the Bermuda Tourism Summit. We're glad you're here, especially glad to see so many of you, more than 300 pre-registered to be here today. So we're delighted at the interest and the enthusiasm. And, well, let's just get started. So first up, to deliver the welcome this morning is the chairman of our board of directors, Paul Telford.
Good morning and welcome to Bermuda's Tourism Summit Next Level 2018. As Glenn said, I'm Paul Telford. I'm the chairman of the board of directors for the BTA and also the managing director for Rosewood Bermuda. Thank you so much to all of you for participating in this 4th annual Tourism Summit. We have an exciting day ahead of us and we're all eager to see what the BTA has put together. We really must thank the amazing team at the BTA for organizing this event. And I have to say, every year that we do this event, it just gets better and better and better. It's almost next level. And thank you to the amazing team at Hamilton Princess for hosting the event. So what has the BTA and the tourism industry been up to in the last 12 months since our last summit? We had record-breaking arrivals in 2017. We're on a streak for 10 consecutive quarters of year-over-year growth in leisure air arrivals and visitor spending. We hosted our first I2U World Triathlon Series in Bermuda, and we won the bid to host the finals in 2021. Woohoo! We had our first Disney cruise calls this year, and Airbnb will be hosting experiences next year. The island graced the cover of Travel and Leisure in their April issue. The island graced the cover of Condé Nast Traveler in their November issue. And the island was voted best island in the region by Condé Nast readers. Woo-hoo! So, Kevin, that's the best you could do? Oh, and you also managed to work in a massive, inclusive, and collaborative effort with hundreds of industry partners and stakeholders to develop Bermuda's tourism roadmap for the next 6 years by way of the new National Tourism Plan, which, in partnership with the Bermuda government, will be revealed today. So I guess you haven't been entirely asleep at the wheel, Kevin. Congratulations on a phenomenal past 12 months, and I'm truly looking forward to all that today has to offer, including the grand showcasing of Bermuda's new National Tourism Plan. And with that, I'd like to welcome to the stage our CEO, Kevin Dallas, to officially kick off today's program.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. Oh no, we can do better than that. I never let foreign audiences get away with that, so I'm not letting the home audience get away with that. Good morning. There we go. Wow, ooh, that's loud. Fantastic. Thank you for joining us this morning. Why are we here? Does anybody think they're in the wrong room? No. Okay. Well, let me give you 2 different framings of why we're here. The first is the schedule. So let's walk through that. So this morning, perhaps to nobody's surprise, especially given that Paul just said it, we're going to start off by unveiling the National Tourism Plan. For those of you who want to cheat, it's actually on the table in front of you in handy booklet form. But we'll walk through what the plan is and the objectives we had in creating it, and we'll actually invite some of the folks who helped us co-create it to say a few words about it as well. We will then take a short break, and then we'll come back and we'll actually go back to the beginning. So our partners at Red Sky, who helped us develop the plan, will share with you some of the massive amount of research and input that was collected. So after we show you the answer, we'll take you right back to the beginning and show you where it came from and the data that helped inform it. We'll then go into, whoops, it's quite fast. There we go. We will then go into breakout sessions. So the breakout sessions are designed to give you a chance to spend some time with folks who have common interests to you and in the part of the tourism economy that you're in or think you might want to be in. So those are scattered around the building. If you weren't pre-registered for one, I know I saw many people registering this morning. If you weren't pre-registered for one, you are welcome to choose the one of most interest to you. And the one that I would flag that's a little unusual up there, while most of them are in rooms we know well, the teams and groups for the WIN session is actually in the private dining room at Marcus's, which is the room at the back behind the bar. Feel free to collect a drink on your way there. So that's noon to 1. We actually then come back in, there we go. Oh, right, there we go. We then come back in here for lunch. So 12 to 1 are your breakouts. We're then all back together for lunch. We're going to hear from the minister responsible for tourism. We're going to hear from the Honorable Jamal Simmons, who will talk a little bit about government's role in creating the plan and government's commitment to helping us implement the plan. And then in a third session, actually, we will have Red Sky and some of the BTA team back to take you in more detail through some of the chapters. So we'll give you a high-level overview this morning, then we'll share the foundation of the plan, and then we'll go through the plan in more detail so that everybody gets a really good feel for what's in there. Then what we'll do is we'll give you a bit of a highlight of what's ahead for the BTA next year. So we'll showcase some of the plans that we know we have. Of course, that plan is still changing a little bit at this stage, but we will share with you all the signature events, all the major dates, all the opportunities for partnership and collaboration that we're aware of at this time so that we can get a running start on the year ahead. Then we have an outside speaker who's going to talk to us a little bit about marketing worth sharing. And then at the end of the day, we invite everybody to join us for a networking reception over in the Trudeau Ballroom, which conveniently also has a bar. It actually has 2 types of bar. So also set up in Trudeau for the day are what we've called the Brilliant Bars. So modeled a little bit on the Apple Genius Bar. We have the National Service Standards team. We have our digital partner, Miles, and our digital team here to help you with Google destinations and some of the challenges or opportunities that you may be seeing there. We have our business intelligence team here to showcase BTA Connect. Who knows what BTA Connect is? Not very many of you. Okay. So BTA Connect is the BTA's new portal. It is our new tool for taking data sharing and personalization with you to the next level. So through BTA Connect, all of our partners will be able to get tailored information and view their interaction history with the BTA. So there's a breakout group on this one at noon, but there's also the Brilliant Bar set up all day long so that you can stop by and collect some information about what that's about, and you can see how it works. And then our friends from TripAdvisor are here once again as well. So, that's the day from a very kind of, pragmatic, agenda-driven way. I guess I'd think about the purpose of today in another way as well, which is the more esoteric. I really think that we are here for 3 reasons. The first, frankly, is to celebrate. Paul highlighted many of the great things that are happening. To me, there is one number which stands out above all others, and that's 15%. Does anybody know what that is? That is leisure air arrivals year to date. We are up 15%. That's incredible on the back of last year. And it wouldn't have been possible without everyone in this room. There's an endless debate on social media blogs about what the BTA takes credit for and doesn't and everything else. But really that is a group effort, and all the people in this room are responsible for it. So we should celebrate that incredible achievement. Give yourselves more applause. The second reason that we're here is to share. So we're here to share the National Tourism Plan, to share the year ahead. There is an enormous amount of information that's available to be consumed. And so we really hope that you're able to join us all day and if you're not, that you will come back when you can. It really is worth your time. The third is to network. As Glenn said, it takes an awful lot of work to get this group of people together, and it doesn't happen very often. So we really want you to take full advantage of the day. So everyone has a name tag. I realize in Bermuda that sometimes feels a bit redundant, but we do have overseas guests here as well. So we have our tour operator summit partners here as well. Today is their last day on the island. So everybody's got a name tag, and then did everybody get a chance to pick up some of these? And did some people pick them up and not know what they are? So these affix to the bottom of your name tag, and the idea is that you pick up the ones that are relevant to you, so in my case, staff, certified tourism ambassador, and undeniably troublemaker, and put them on so that people know what they might want to talk to you about. For those of you that didn't get a chance to get these or didn't know what they were outside the Trudeau ballroom, so on the other end of the balcony, and you'll be able to pick them up in the next break. Okay. Finally, we would love your engagement through the day, both in person but also especially online. So if you would be so kind as to tweet using the hashtag BTA Summit, that would be fantastic, and we'll actually see people's contributions throughout the day on the screens around us. Okay, so the moment you've all been waiting for. What is the National Tourism Plan? The National Tourism Plan is designed to be a 6-year plan for the tourism business in Bermuda, so for the whole industry, and designed to make sure that we actually maintain the growth trajectory that we've had for the last 3 years. And if you want to think about what an ambitious ask that is, that would be to achieve a result that Bermuda has not seen since the 1970s. So this is an ambitious ask. Some people have asked why a 6-year plan. The reality is that it started as a 5-year plan, but we thought 2024 felt like a weird date to end something, so we made it 2025. So there's a bit of pragmatism in this plan as well. Also, the reality of any strategic plan is that a plan like this is really a 2 to 3 year detailed plan in a 5 to 6 year long-term direction of travel. If we tried to be incredibly specific about what we think is going to happen in 2022, 2023, 2024, I think the one thing that we could be sure of is that we're wrong. But the idea is to paint a plan for the next few years that provides us with a long-term ambition and a detailed short-term path of where we need to go. So the approach that we took, the ask when we went out to RFP, seeking partners to help us create this plan, is that we wanted something that was inspirational and robust, but also actionable. When we reflected on the 2012 plan, it was also an ambitious plan. Many of the things in it did indeed happen, actually, and we do have, for anyone that's interested, a fairly robust deconstruction of what worked and didn't work in the old plan. But we did feel like in many of the elements there was a clear vision, but not a clear plan for how to get there. So in the 2018 plan, we've tried to be extremely pragmatic on what's actually actionable and achievable. And we've set all of our ambitions accordingly and tried to only put in things where we see a path to how we get there. The second thing was to make sure that all voices are heard. So we set our partners the rather ambitious challenge of talking to as many people as possible, including BTA's detractors, including people that have become cynical about tourism in Bermuda. We wanted to make sure that the whole community was heard. The third was to really work in a way which creates collaboration rather than competition. One of the things that we saw when we deconstructed the 2012 plan was that that plan actually in some ways did the opposite. It in fact created competition, for example, between hubs when we actually need everyone on the island to work together for tourism to be a success. We wanted to be positive and forward-looking. To that point about some people have become cynical in Bermuda, We are determined to be relentlessly positive and look to the future rather than dwelling on the past. And finally, it needs to be a shared vision for tourism on the island. This is not the BTA's plan. This is a plan for tourism in Bermuda. So this needs to be the plan for everyone in this room, and importantly also for many of the people not in this room. So as we've worked, you'll see we've also worked, for example, with Bermuda First to make sure that this plan threads together with theirs rather than exists in competition with other plans on the island. There we go. We did an enormous amount of research to inform the plan. So the local community on the island was consulted in multiple ways. So the first was we actually created an online survey of open input. If you have an opinion, tell us what it is. 377 Bermudians wrote copious amounts of what they thought about tourism, what they thought about the BTA. Some people thought about my fashion sense as well. That got in there. Apparently it's lacking. I think we know who wrote that. Anyway, it was Glenn. No. But we gave people that chance to give open input. We also did a representative survey. So we did a telephone survey of 400 residents. We actually just repeated that again recently. But to collect their views on tourism so that we'd be able to match them against what visitors think about tourism in Bermuda. And that sample was designed to be statistically representative of our population. So actually in the data that we now have that we can share, we can tell you about how views on tourism compare between Paget and Southampton, between old and young, black and white. We can tell you all of that. And it's a really fantastic set of data for us going forward. We consulted with more than 150 stakeholders from across the gambit of the tourism industry and other community groups. We then, as the plan evolved, organized those people into stakeholder workshops. And thank you to everyone in this room that committed what was frankly an enormous amount of time to helping us work through all the different issues that we presented you with. We consulted hundreds of outside trend reports and third-party data. And finally, we did an enormous survey of visitors. If you're writing a plan for tourism, it's probably a good idea to see what visitors think. So we went to roughly 2,500 visitors and non-visitors to Bermuda. We then topped that up with a 1,000-person survey specifically of African-American travelers that we commissioned to make sure that we were able to dig deeply into that issue. And then we actually topped that up with a number of key opinion leader interviews specific on that topic as well that you'll hear more about later. So out of all of that comes an ambition for a vision for what we want tourism to be. And two words resonated with almost everyone. And those are growing and balanced. We want to continue to have the tourism sector grow, but we want to grow in a way that is balanced in terms of our seasonality, so evening out the trough between our really low winter and our pretty high summer, so getting to a more consistent year-round business. More balanced in terms of the price-value perception. There's clearly a deep feeling that that is sometimes out of whack in Bermuda, and that there is an opportunity through things like raising our service standards to address that. More balanced in cruise versus air. So the age-old tension in Bermuda of cruise visitors are great, no cruise visitors are evil. We didn't buy into either view. We believe that cruise has a role to play, and we see an opportunity for the cruise industry in particular in helping us address seasonality. But we recognize that there is a need to grow air visitors over cruise and to achieve balance between the two, because both contribute importantly to our economy. And finally, balanced benefits for all. So a recognition that in order for Bermuda's wider community to get behind tourism, the benefits need to be shared and the benefits need to be seen to be shared. So Bermudians must see the value that tourism delivers for them if they're going to be involved and engaged. And we believe they need to be involved and engaged if we're going to succeed. So with that vision, we set ourselves a mission to be the catalyst for change. So the National Tourism Plan is designed around change that will boost tourism in a growing but balanced way in Bermuda. So the guiding principles that we set ourselves were first and foremost that we, the BTA, must work with all stakeholders. So we cannot exist in a silo, and the plan reflects that. The plan assigns tasks to the BTA, but it also has an incredible number of initiatives in it that are not controlled or led by the BTA. By a highly scientific analysis, we concluded that 20 to 25% of the plan is within our control, and therefore, by extension, the vast majority is not. Second, we said that the plan needs to focus on the things that matter. So this is a plan that makes choices. It makes choices about where we'll put our time and focus, and implicitly then it also makes choices about what we will not do. And we will share more of that through the day as well. Our third principle was that we need to create change in a sustainable way. So we recognize that while in some respects over-tourism is a problem that we'd love to have, that actually as the tourism industry grows, and what we've seen with our cruise passengers with the arrival of bigger ships, is that it places strain on the visitor experience and on that value perception that is so important. And that unless we protect our precious natural assets, we won't have a tourism product to sell. So we recognize and embedded in the plan that sustainability needs to be at the heart of everything that we do. We already talked about fostering cooperation rather than competition. And finally, we said we need to think like visitors. So a need to be visitor-centric is right at the heart of the whole plan. And some of what you'll see in sessions 2 and 3 is challenging to our idea of who we are as Bermudians and how we think of our home. But it's important that we understand that that's what our visitors think, and that's what our visitors say they want. And we disregard that at our peril. So the good news is that change is in our DNA. So this came out in one of the tourism stakeholder interviews really early on, and the other person I've seen present almost exactly this the same way is actually Minister Keynes talking about the FinTech initiative. And I think some of the overlaps between how that's been thought about and how this has been thought about are quite striking. But the good news is that we have a history of reinventing ourselves. From being farmers and, well, she said pirates, we should have said privateers, settlers, shipbuilders, farmers again, to hosting the US Navy, the Canadian Navy, the Royal Navy, to becoming an insurance center, and now to embracing FinTech. Bermuda has continually reinvented itself over the last 3.5 centuries. And we believe we can continue to. However, we do need to face into the fact that while we used to be nimble because we were a small country rather than a large bureaucratic country, we've somehow become a small bureaucratic country, which might be the worst of all possible worlds. And that what we really need to do is, before we can reinvent ourselves in the bigger sense, we need to reimagine who we want to be, and we need to embrace the idea that change isn't only possible, change is necessary, and change is part of who we are. And that really does form the central thesis of this plan, is that actually our ability to transform ourselves speaks to our passion as Bermudians and to our agility and our own self-identity. But change is incredibly hard. So as we take you through the chapters of the plan now and what this is all about, I'm going to need some help from people smarter than me. So first, I'll invite Glenn Jones to join us on stage.
I don't know about smarter, but taller.
Better dressed.
Let's go have a seat.
All right.
All right, so Kevin gave you kind of the overall thesis of the plan. And what we thought we'd do next is just have some conversations, ourselves, but also with some other people who helped us put together the plan over the past 8 months.
They're not there?
Well, we should acknowledge that they're there.
Right.
So don't talk to me like you do in the office. Make sure you know that there's company watching.
Right.
All right.
So I'll tweet about it.
Let me see if I can stump you with this first question, because as I was listening to you, I was trying to think, What is actually more difficult? Stopping the trend that was decades long on the downturn, or actually being successful and then trying to get to that next level of success? Both are pretty hard, but I wonder which is more difficult?
I mean, I think the latter is more difficult. I think it's difficult in two ways. So the first is that actually there still isn't universal acceptance that we have flipped that corner. So many people are still really down on tourism in Bermuda, despite 3 years of incredible success and resurgence. The other is, of course, that the easy stuff is done. So, the last few years have been an incredible block and tackle effort for everyone in this room. And by no means has that been easy, but that was the low-hanging fruit. So taking this to the next level requires a different kind of commitment.
Yeah, a lot of change, really.
Correct.
And change is pretty tough. All right.
Have we mentioned that?
Let's invite Kimberly Orton up. She's a managing director at Red Sky Strategy and was an integral part of the last 8 months in helping to develop the plan. Kimberly, come have a seat with us, please.
Note these stools are low because I'm short.
Why don't we start by talking where Kevin left off, on agility. 8 months of work, all these people that you spoke with, but you kind of distilled it down into kind of one word.
Agility, and before I even talk about that, I have a question. How many people remember the important strategic pillars of the 2012 plan? Raise your hand. Okay, not a lot of hands going up.
No, just a couple.
So one of the things we thought about, that we really struck with, was how very agile and how agility has been part of the DNA of Bermuda. And we also wanted this plan to be something that resonates with the entire country and with everyone who's going to participate ultimately in its success. So we came up with this acronym called Agility. By now you've seen it on your notepads and on the pieces of paper in front of you, but I want to take you through what it stands for, because it really does represent all the pillars of the plan. So A is for awareness and relevance. This is about making sure that people know not only where Bermuda is, but what makes us unique and different and why they should come. The G is for greener. We made a very conscious effort not to say it's about green, it's about greener, because this is about growing, not being just pink and blue, but also being greener and taking what we're already doing in terms of sustainability that Kevin talked about and taking it to the next level. The next is infrastructure, and we have a lot of information we're going to talk about in terms of infrastructure. And really, the best thing I can sort of do to sum that up is we're going to talk about transportation.
Came up a lot in those discussions.
Came up yesterday.
And that's our I. And in terms of that, we want to make sure that we really do those things to make everyone's trip, seamless and effortless when you come to Bermuda. As Kevin has sort of alluded to, a lot of people were involved in this process, and it continues from here, which is why we've got local involvement. We need the entire community to not only embrace the plan, participate in the plan, but benefit from the plan as well. So it's incredibly important that we have that local involvement. Innovation, which is our I, which is about thinking like a visitor, making sure that we are doing things that are now about what people demand and need and want versus what we just have. So we're going to flip our thinking a little bit and talk about that as we go forward. And then teams and groups. This is really about focusing on the teams and groups that work best for us, because we still need to be in the business of business and make sure that people can come to the island in ways of working and participating in events and conferences and exhibitions. So we've got T for teams and groups. And then to round everything off, and last but certainly not least, is year-round. This is really embracing the fact that we have seasons. And they have unique and differences, each one of them, and we're going to talk about how do we think about seasonality and how do we rename our seasons and embrace the seasons. So all of that spells agility. It's an acronym that we hope everyone will remember. It's part of our DNA, and more importantly, it's actionable. So whether you're doing 2 or 3 of the pillars or in all of them, we hope that you'll be thinking about agility until 2025.
And I know Kimberly mentioned it, just to reemphasize, the booklet in front of you actually breaks down all of these pillars in the way that Kimberly was just talking about. It doesn't give you every detail behind that pillar, but when you see the final plan, it'll have sort of these key sections, Kimberly.
So the plan has lots of detail. Each of the pillars has an issues pages in some instances. There's an opportunity, which is really what we're trying to do by 2025. It's really setting our goals and our aspirations for the plan. And then each of the pillars has goals, specific goals that we are trying to accomplish and measure, and the metrics that goes with that. Because, you know, what good is a goal if you don't know, you know, if you've gotten there or if you haven't, and what you need to do to achieve it. We've got strategies under each of those, in some instances multiple strategies, and we'll take you through just a couple of those on each of the pillars in sections 3. And then tactics. And not only do the tactics represent the action plans in terms of the strategies themselves, but there's people responsible, and as we've said, this is a plan for everyone, so there's lots of involvement there. And then again, measurable milestones that we can say whether we've accomplished it or not. So we have some key checkpoints. So this is really a detailed plan. I think when we presented the plan in its entirety, it takes somewhere around 5 or 6 hours. So we're not going to keep you here that long, but we are going to take you through some of this in sections 2 and sections 3.
Okay, thank you very much, Kimberly. And Kimberly and her colleague Anthony will be back later to walk you through those sections. You know, the first section of the plan, Kevin, awareness and relevance, is sort of the one that at the Bermuda Tourism Authority we have to take 100% ownership of, because that's really our job.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's right, Glenn. I mean, I think of all of the 7 pillars of the plan, that is the one where the BTA's role as the official destination marketing organization for the island is clearest.
All right, so our sales and marketing team is based mainly in New York. Jamari Douglas, our digital marketing manager, is with us today. We're just going to talk to him a little bit because he contributed a lot to this section of the plan in the way that Kevin talked about, making sure that everyone knows what Bermuda is all about.
Andy has a really impressive beard.
That is an impressive beard.
Impressive what?
Beard.
Oh, thank you.
And you know, it's not hard to get Kevin into Bermuda shorts, but it is tough to get you into Bermuda
Yes,
shorts.
I finally got in my Bermuda shorts today. I'm usually not.
All right, so let's talk, Jamari, about some of the tactics you're using on digital platforms to make sure Bermuda stands apart from the competition, particularly because we get lumped in very often with the Caribbean and other islands.
Yes, so what we like to do is really differentiate ourselves. We are a market leader, so we use a lot of data to drive what it is that we're doing with our marketing and our decision making for marketing. So one of the main things is terminal data. So our team MMGY, they have our agency MMGY, they have a database of travelers that they use and survey, and we take that information, ask them questions and take that information and then apply that to our marketing. So where are they searching, where are they looking for information, and how do they want that information delivered? We also have full funnel marketing as well. So wherever people are in the marketing funnel, so whether it's I'm dreaming about going to Bermuda, or I'm already planning a trip to Bermuda, or I'm booked and I'm going to Bermuda. So we want to deliver content to them that makes sense for where they are in the funnel. So it's relevant to them. We're not giving anybody like, oh, this event's happening, when they're actually just thinking about going to Bermuda. It could be something else like that.
Well, to the point that Jamari's making, I know now we're actually publishing, it's not a digital product, but we're publishing a brochure that speaks specifically to the seasons of the year. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be really important to that sort of balanced approach.
You know, I think that's an interesting example of where we always get the question of, oh, well, you know, how much of your marketing is just digital now? What's your digital percentage? Mm-hmm. And we do an enormous amount of digital-only advertising, but we also do a whole lot of work that is what we call integrated marketing, where we're looking at how things that happen in the digital sphere interact with things that happen either in print or in our own publication, and even with events that happen here on the island. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, the seasonal guides are a good example of that, where they're being downloaded by the thousand through gotobermuda.com, but they're also being handed out to cruise passengers in physical form when they get off the ship in dockyard.
All right, so Jamari, let's talk next about some of the misconceptions you find in the digital space. I know that can particularly be true on social. So how do you handle those challenges when they're out there?
It's really asking the people where they get the information from. Some of the things that we find that people just don't know is where Bermuda is and what that means. Are we in the Caribbean? We're British territory, but you're close to North Carolina. People are not aware. So it's really having a map, it's showing images, it's asking other people to get involved and other partners as well. So a lot of times I'll tag Bermeans. It's just like, hey, show them where this is, and really getting partners involved, like Kristen White as well. So use a lot of the people who are active on social to bring them in and educate consumers. This is where Bermuda is. So you have those third-party endorsements, which are important. So
if people in this room are communicating with our social channel,
yes,
they might be communicating with with you.
Yes, you are. You are.
Now you have the vision of
Yes,
Jamari with the beard
yes.
and the Bermuda shorts. You know who you're talking to.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks very much, Jamari,
Thank you very much.
on
I
awareness
appreciate it.
and relevance. The next part of the plan is greener, continuing with the agility acronym. Growing Bermuda by being pink, blue, and greener. We've asked Roger Todd, who's the director of the Department of Public Transportation, to join us to talk a little bit about this. Transport, Roger, came up a lot in our conversations. And I have to tell you, after speaking with you, we felt pretty good about where we're going for transport. So thank you very much about that, because sometimes it is difficult to be optimistic about it. I know you have a lot of ambitious plans, but what we learned is that part of your plan is actually making the public bus fleet greener. Can you just explain what your vision is on that front?
Yes, okay, so good morning, everyone. The first priority is obviously delivering a reliable and convenient bus service. But we also have an aging fleet, and about 65% of our fleet is due for replacement. And so that capital investment, that pent-up capital, represents an opportunity to do a step change to something that's different, more modern, more accessible, cleaner, more efficient.
Great. Kevin, I know you're doing your part to make sure transport-related, tourism-related transport vehicles are greener, because you drive that Twizy to work every day. Have you seen Kevin in the Twizy? Who hasn't, right? Yeah. But the ambitious goal in this plan is to make 20% of tourism-related vehicles greener, environmentally friendly. Roger, what's your thoughts on that goal? Do you think we can do it, first of all?
Yeah, I think not only can we do it, we have to do it. Because when I think about tourism-related vehicles, I'm thinking about the buses, the ferries, the mini cars, the scooters, the minibuses, the taxis, and even now you see some power-assisted pedal bikes going around. That's interesting. So I think what's important is that as we grow and develop as a country, as a product, it's important to remember the Bermuda experience, which is about beauty and serenity. And so we want to do it in a sustainable way. So I think it's very necessary to incorporate the greening into the transport solutions. And it's cool. It's cool.
It is really cool. And you know what else? It can be monetized. It can be marketed.
I was going to say, it's newsworthy.
Right. So when we make these steps, I think we're actually enhancing our marketing profile.
Well, if you look at the marketing bump, for example, that Hawaii got by banning sunblock that damages the coral reefs. I mean, that's a good thing to do because it's a good thing to do, but it was also a fantastic PR move.
Yeah. So greener makes
Greener
sense.
can be growth.
Yeah, it can be. Greener can be growth. All right, thank you very much, Roger. Really appreciate you coming to see us this morning. We know that you have a lot of work to do, so we're glad to get some of your time.
We promised him protection as well.
No, he's a good guy. Thank you very much, Roger. All right, infrastructure is next. We'll invite Andrew Dias from WEDCO to join us, because he actually made a lot of positive contributions to our working group around infrastructure. Yeah. This is enabling a frictionless experience. Maybe, Kevin, you can just explain first, what do you mean, or what do we mean when we say frictionless?
Well, you know, I think this is an issue that's been a lot in the local media lately, and it tends to descend into an argument of Uber, not Uber. And I think what we saw as we thought about the plan is that we need to take that conversation up a level before we jump to conclusions. What we know that younger visitors really want is what we called a frictionless experience. So at home, they're not really used to waiting in line for things anymore. They're not really used to paying cash for things anymore. They're not really used to needing to know how to get where it is they want to go. So all of those things boil down to what we called frictionless, which is the idea that from first arrival at the airport, from, for that matter, how you get off the plane, to what your immigration and arrival experience is, to what your transport experience is in getting to your hotel, to whether or not you were still handed a physical key to your hotel or vacation rental, that all of those things can represent a transaction cost in somebody's holiday, and that we would really like to make all of those as frictionless and easy for them as possible. So this is infrastructure in a big sense, rather than being specifically about bricks and mortar. And of course, one of the areas where there's the most opportunity for friction is in Dockyard, where when you have 2 big ships in on a given day, you can have 8,000, 9,000 people descending on Andrew.
Yeah, and he has to kind of figure it all out. So Andrew, I know that when we talked in the working group, you really had some exciting things to say about how we might capture data from visitors before they get here in order to deliver that frictionless experience that Kevin was talking about.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously if we can solve it before they get here, or I shouldn't say solve it, plan,
right,
and then we'll adjust the plan when they get here, because no plan ever works 100%, especially when it comes to transportation, and I'll go on to that in a second. But the first thing I think, Kevin, you touched on it, and that is the first impression. With cruise ships, we have a unique situation because we have roughly about a quarter of our passengers are actually returning visitors. So that gives another nuance. But let's focus on people coming to Bermuda for the first time. If their first hour in the island is a great success, they're going to have a first impression that's a lasting impression. So one of the things that we talked about in some of the working groups was what can we do to make it frictionless? So one of the ideas, you know, and I'm not saying that this will exactly work, so please, if there's anyone in the industry out there that says that can't happen, there's no such thing as that can't happen. We'll make it work, we might have to adjust it, but when you actually look at it, air arrivals coming in, if we could look at that as just another port, and we could allow them to come in, and they have, actually the US has done it now to some degree, they probably haven't taken it to the exact level that I'm referring to, but if they could just walk in, they pre-clear everything, they have a fingerprint, there's a kiosk there, they walk straight through, we have pleasant customs officers and immigration officers, so should someone want to be searched or their bag checked, they can do the right thing.
Yep. I don't know anybody wants to be searched.
I'm not suggesting that we relax our border control by that statement, but to do it more efficiently and more customer friendly.
Right.
We pretty much already do that with the cruise arrivals, where most of the passengers are sort of pre-cleared, and then they go through and they have a methodology, I'll say, on how they're going to check everybody. But the other two pieces of it are, which leads into the big one, which is transportation. One of the challenges that we have, not just in Dockyard, but pretty much everywhere throughout the island, but when 2 ships arrive at one time within a matter of 4 or 5 hours, you know, you have 7,000 or 8,000 people. What's the first thing you want to do when you go on vacation is to get out. Right. And so we have a mass exodus. If we can get the data up front, if we can plan how many people are not going to stay on the ship that first day, or they plan to go to St. George's, or they're going to go to Hamilton, or they're going to go to the beach, depending on what months it is. If we have some of that data and we can get them into pre-planning their transportation, it would be much easier for us to manage the transportation issues that we do have.
I know one of the things that Roger's talking about as well is using technology to make the bus traveling experience more enjoyable. Mm-hmm. Just the idea of knowing how long it's going to be before the next bus comes.
Correct.
You're much more tolerant of the wait because it's a knowable thing.
Yeah, it's very, very true. You get on a phone and you're there on hold, and you've actually been sitting on hold for probably 45 seconds, and then the person comes, I've been waiting for you for 10 minutes. So yeah, the time is definitely a piece of it, but it's what you're doing while you're waiting, or what your expectations are before. So I think that's a good one.
Can you just quickly summarize for us some of the things you hope to improve on with the cruise arrival experience in Dockyard?
Well, obviously, I think the first picture, you don't have to go back, but the first picture says it, and you can see very clearly that it's a very small real estate area to handle 6,000 to 8,000 people. So the first thing that we ended up doing was to try to better utilize that area, consolidate, and have a ground transportation that made sense. The second one was to have better signage and make it simple. So we tried to do things like Zone 1, Zone 2, and so that the passenger can read it very simply. They're not going to sit there and read a long list of things. The other one was keeping the ground transportation area primarily to transportation only. That's been a tough one locally because everyone wants to be at the front door, but it is important when you have that many people and you need to move them in short periods of time, that you don't add further congestion. So we're pretty proud about that. The hiring of 4 traffic controllers, so we actually have our own staff there full-time doing that. We also do the ambassador program with BTA. So one of the things, the CTA certified staff that we have, every one of our landscapers, every one of our maintenance people, because they do engage with the passengers. And it may just be that they're standing there, they look up, and then they have 6 passengers in their face saying, how do I get here? So one of the things that we've done, and a funny one is that, how do I get to Dockyard? I'm at Heritage Wharf. We're right here. So it is about communication, and it is about the experience.
All right, Andrew, we're going to have to cut you short because we're running out of time.
No
but
problem.
I wanted to just mention that Pierce will be with us in a moment. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Certified Tourism Ambassador Program. But thank you very much for your contributions to the working groups. Thank you very much, Andrew. Okay, so next up is local involvement, and this one is a huge one, growing with and through people. In fact, it's so big, we needed 2 people to help us with this. Joseph Best is on our board of directors. He's going to join us. And Cordell Riley, who is a lecturer at Bermuda College. We'll invite those 2 gentlemen up. I'll give up my seat to one of them as we do this part of the presentation. And as Kevin mentioned earlier, it was important that everybody in the community felt like they benefited or were a part of tourism. Cordell, why don't you have a seat there? And Cordell, why don't we start with you, just on the idea of tourism careers. We did some research locally. We know that only 40% of the public thinks that tourism is a bright future career for young Bermudians. How do we start to more positively impact that?
Well, thank you, and thank you for the invitation. Actually, I thought 40% was quite high, actually.
Really?
My colleague and I, Sean DeShields, who's in the audience today, back in 2005, we presented a paper at Eurocre. You'll have to ask him what that stands for. The title of the paper was From Instability to Volatility, and it looked at the movement from tourism to international business. You would know that around 1992 or so, international business overtook tourism in terms of foreign exchange as a leading contributor to foreign exchange. And then you saw the movement from jobs in tourism into international business, although tourism still had the high number of jobs, but you saw the movement. And what we did was we asked the parents as well as the students at that time for that paper what they felt about tourism. And if you ask the parents would say things like, well, you know, I've worked in the industry, it's long hours, it's shift work, you know, international business is coming, I think I want my child to go in something like that. And I think if you poll people today, they'll probably say, and probably in the study that you have done, they'll say the same thing. So I think what we have to focus on is that we know tourism is a good industry. We have to also recognize the fact that Bermuda has a very high cost of living, and so you want people to have a good career, but you also want them to have a good standard of living. And so I think starting out, what we need to see is having more Bermudians moving up to management, and one of the ways that we can do that is, and this is not a new idea, having Bermudians own properties. I saw Paul Lejour in the room. I saw, I think, Neil Stevens in the room. These are folk who have owned hotels or still own hotels. And by having your own hotels, you tend to focus on having more Bermudians. If you have an international property, almost by example, they want to have their own management in place. So we would like to have more Paul Talfords, we would like to have more Muriel Richardsons. But I think that comes quicker if you have greater ownership. And we can start off small, like the Bermuda collections of yesteryear and those sorts of things, and where you have more Bermudians in place, and that's where you're going to attract younger people, and so they can come through the ranks knowing that there's an opportunity for them to move forward.
No, it's a fair point. I remember when the Tourism Investment Act was about to be passed, it was about ensuring that Bermudians had the same incentives and benefits that foreign investors would have. One of the things that came up, Joseph, when we were talking about this in the board meeting was sort of the cost of living in Bermuda. And the entry-level jobs in tourism can be unattractive when you consider how much it costs to live in Bermuda. How do you see that dynamic?
I think Bermuda is a very expensive place to live, and quite honestly, people need to change their mindset about tourism and what the actual tourism product is a little bit, because at the end of the day, when you're looking at what tourism is, it's about Bermuda. And people are very passionate. People have a lot of pride in Bermuda, and being able to translate that into a profitable enterprise is something that has limitless opportunities here. When you're looking at entrepreneurship opportunities within the tourism industry, I think when you think about how people have taken advantage and what resonates with them. You look at things like going back a number of years now, but the cliff jumping video. People took a lot of pride in that because it showcased Bermuda.
And it was part of their culture.
Yes.
Sort of, yeah.
And so making that cultural tie, making those connections and understanding that even if you are not entering into the traditional hotel line of business or entering in through the restaurants as a server, there are still opportunities to grow and to develop as a tourism professional, and not to discount the longer term opportunities even within the traditional veins as well, because when you look at being a hotel worker, or you're in the restaurant business, you're actually learning the operations, and that's invaluable knowledge to when you want to actually enter into management, to be able to know how these things run, to be able to take them to another level and to actually put your own spin onto it.
And I think Cordell made a very good point, and then we probably need to move on, but entry-level jobs give way to management jobs. Right. And as long as Bermudians have access to those opportunities, we know there are several hundred new hotel jobs on the way, and that those jobs will give people a foundation that can either lead into management roles or into entrepreneurial opportunities in tourism.
Paul Telford's probably the best example of that, right? Someone who starts as a busboy, but now is a managing director.
Indeed, although I kind of think one Paul Telford is plenty.
Yeah, that's probably true. All right, we're out of time, but I would encourage you as well to speak to Cordell about the working group that you're on that actually is evaluating this cost of living part of the equation, and I know we're going to be calling on you again. So thank you very much for the contributions you've already made. Cordell and Joseph, thank you both very much.
All right.
All right, let's go to innovation next, and we'll ask Pierce Carr from Current Vehicles to join us up on the stage. Innovation is something we think about and talk about a lot in the Bermuda Tourism Authority office, because like most industries, innovation is rampant in tourism, whether it's voice-operated apps or artificial intelligence. And I know these are things that Pierce, you're looking at in terms of your customers who rent Twizzys. How are you using technology to enhance the experience, but also keeping your eye on customer service at the same time?
I think it's really taking advantage of affordable and available technology. So we've adopted online booking tools so that our customers book usually before they even come to Bermuda. They get the admin out the way, and that really means less time queuing up when they come to pick up a Twizzy. And it's about that seamless experience, giving them more time to go out and explore and to really enjoy themselves here. And that technology is being developed and improved all the time, and we just keep an eye to what's being developed and try and adopt it if it's applicable to our business.
Another major plank of innovation is think like a visitor, as it says right there on the screen, Kevin. I know sometimes in our history we've kind of fallen down on that. We've kind of given people what we want to give them instead of giving them what they want.
I think that's right. I mean, and we also make a lot of assumptions about what we think our visitors want. And one of the things we'll come back to in session 2 is what residents think visitors want versus what visitors say they want. And they're not always the same thing.
So before you got started, Pierce, the belief is that this is something that visitors wanted, the ability to rent a mini car. Has that proven to be true?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think to give people an option, it's just an added option. It's taking advantage of the technologies that are happening in the automotive world, the focus on electric vehicles, zero emissions, and just, a lot of people don't have experience on 2 wheels, and to give them the ability
it is driving on the wrong side of the road for a lot of people, but it's stability and familiarity, and it's really opened up Bermuda to a lot of people. They can get out and explore and see parts of the island they previously haven't been able to see. So it's really, it's generating a more rewarding experience for a lot of the people that come.
You know, I think Pierce is a great example of actually also how many of the issues that we're facing into touch multiple pillars. So Pierce is bringing innovation to the industry. It's also greener. We also rescued him from insurance. True. Yeah. All right. We better move on.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice shorts.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
All right. Teams and groups is next, and we'll ask Sean Tucker from the National Sports Center and Solange Gishner to join us. Although I don't see them moving. Oh, they're getting microphoned over there. All right, so this is the area where Kimberly mentioned that we need to show that we're in the business of business. And this is an area that really can help us seasonally, Kevin, in terms of those non-summer months, because these two areas, business groups and teams, can really operate in those non-summer months. Come on up, Sean and Solange.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi. Have a seat. Oh, okay, Sean, you sit over here. Yes, sorry about that. So, Sean, why don't we start with you? We know that in the non-summer months, sports teams are coming to Bermuda to train. So we know why it makes sense from a tourism perspective. Why does it make sense for you at the National Sports Center?
So for us, there are a number of reasons. To those who aren't familiar with our facilities, at the National Sports Center, we want you to know that it's a multi-use facility. So we are catering to track and field, we're catering to hockey, rugby, football, cricket, lacrosse, practically every sport that is out there. And as we develop our business model, we are developing the sports that we can cater to. Of course, swimming and diving is now the biggest one that we are attracting.
And they don't mind doing that in the wintertime.
No.
We wouldn't.
So we have teams that are coming on Boxing Day from Canada and from, funnily enough, we were able to capitalize, for want of a better word, on the tragedies that happened in Puerto Rico, because we had teams that would have traditionally gone to Puerto Rico to train in the off season. And so we had teams that came here last Christmas to train. So teams will come here and they will train in what we would never go into the water with January, December, February, and they think it's fantastic. Right. We had teams from Toronto, from Western Ontario that were here January, February, and they thought it was summer, and it was just mind-blowing. But
thinking like a visitor.
Yeah. And so for us, the benefits are multifold. So they come, we found that we would not be able to be sustainable based purely on the local user. So the local market is not big enough to support us. And so the international market is something that we have to tap into, number one. Number two, all of the facilities at the National Sports Center are built to an international standard. And to ensure that we remain competitive and viable and relevant, we need to be out there and for everyone to know that we're there and to see what we're doing and to remain competitive. And it also gives our local athletes the opportunity to compete internationally on home soil and to promote what we have in Bermuda.
Well, I think you touched on this in your answer. When we were talking to both you and Solange, who's with DusFat, about teams and groups, it also goes into year-round, right? Because if we're trying to grow seasonally, having the ability to use your facilities for sports teams is essential. But for both of you, I know transport is a big part on what you have to deliver. So Solange, how are we faring in that area? What are we doing well? What do we need to do better?
I think that we're doing well. I think transportation allows my guests or the groups coming in to experience that interaction with a local person, but it also allows my groups to have access to the experience that Bermuda offers. So that's great, and I think that we are doing an exceptional job with that. The issue that I think that we're running into is offering people different tiers, so premium, standard, and economy. Having that cost, availability, and also that standard. Is difficult, and we are getting those larger groups, where you've got 400 and 600 people that you're trying to move around. And it is quite difficult. So I do think that there is an opportunity in that area to provide different options and different tiers.
Well, speaking of opportunity, you talked as well about some of the support services beyond transport that your groups need that perhaps presents an opportunity to local entrepreneurs. Can you touch a little bit on that?
So I think for that, we definitely need more local entrepreneurs. And I think we saw that around the America's Cup. We are polished now. Bermuda, you know, I can reach out to various people and get things done. And I think that there is a need for local entrepreneurs in the tech and production side so that we have more options. So I'm hoping that there are some young entrepreneurs out there that are wanting to jump into that because we're really limited. And so we have groups coming in that are seeing Bermuda because we're doing an exceptional job showing the world how awesome we are. But when they want a set like this, by the way, shout out to BTA, this looks incredible. We need to be able to offer those large scale.
All right, thank you guys.
One more for you, Sean, just in terms of growth capacity. I know we've sent a lot of teams your way, but I've heard you say we can take more.
Well, we can take more. So not only in swimming and diving, which has been the main sport that you've sent our way, but there's hockey, there's rugby, there is lacrosse, which is something that's growing, and many more. And we can't underestimate, to add on to Solange's point, we can't underestimate the transportation component in that. That has been in some instances, it's been a deal breaker because of the difficulty that some teams have faced with logistics. Yep. It's gotten better, and at one stage we were considering actually buying a bus of our own to move people around. But to use Solange's words, we are polished now, and things are a lot better than they were. And so the people moving aspect has gotten a lot better, and Bermuda is a lot more, it's become a lot more developed.
Well, success means the expectations get higher.
That's right.
Too, yeah.
That's right.
All right, thank you very much to Solange and Sean. Thank you both very much. We'll ask Anthony Bennett to come up and join us for the last part of this, just so that we can talk about some of the measurements on how we're going to track our progress in all of this. Anthony Bennett is the colleague of Kimberly Orton, who you heard from earlier. Hello, Anthony.
Hello.
All right, so how do we keep score?
So when we were developing the plan, we spent a lot of time thinking about how to track its success. And you'll see that we have overall success indicators, but also for every strategy and for every tactic, we have measurements, because we believe that what gets measured gets done. So in terms of the success indicators for the plan as a whole, we developed 6. And we thought really long and hard about these because they had to reflect the goals and the mission and vision that Kevin spoke about. So the first success indicator, and perhaps the most important, is really just arrivals growth in leisure, obviously. So we're projecting about a 4.5% growth in arrivals in both air and cruise, and about a 6.3% growth in spending. Now, 4.5% doesn't sound very sexy, but when you think about compared to the projected economic growth of the island as a whole, it's 3 times the economic growth of the island, and it's actually 2.5 times what tourism has grown in the past 10 years. So it's actually pretty ambitious. Then we looked at the different parts of the plan and said, how do we make sure that we measure success of those parts of the plan? As Kevin said, we need to get a balance in the seasons, and we need to get a balance between cruise and air. So in terms of cruise and air, that's our goal number 2. We wanted to make sure that around at least more than 30% of our arrivals in the summer come from airlift versus cruise. And again, we spent a lot of time thinking about how we got that number. And again, 30% may not sound like a lot, but when we project it out to 2026 at the current rate, 30% means we will actually run out of hotel rooms in the summer. That's how ambitious it is. So we need to develop hotel rooms.
Including all those new hotel rooms that are coming.
And vacation rentals as well. We included
so
vacation rentals.
Totally max out. Yeah.
So we will max out, at the current rate, we'll max out at 2025. We also wanted to make sure that we get more people in the non-summer months. Currently, we're getting about 50% of all arrivals in 3 months. We need that to be spread over the year. So we want to make sure that we get more people in the non-summer months. A very important goal for the plan as well, and we set this out explicitly, was to attract more African Americans. Currently, around 4% of Bermuda arrivals are African Americans. Our target market is about 11% African American, so we're under-leveraged. We believe that can double and grow to at least over 8%. We can't get growth if service standards decline. You can't make that trade-off. So we wanted to make sure that one of the goals was around maintaining and improving service. And we have our fifth goal, which is around satisfaction, visitor satisfaction. So we wanted to make sure that everyone who comes to Bermuda recommends Bermuda to family and friends. Currently, it's around 75, 76%. We want that to continue growing to at least over 80%, preferably 83%. And then finally, we've talked a lot about local involvement, and tourism in Bermuda would not go anywhere if local residents did not support tourism. So we have a very explicit goal that we want to make sure that local residents support tourism and feel that they're benefiting from tourism as well. So we've done some research and we found that the current number is around 60%. 60% of people, Bermuda residents, say that they support the development of tourism. We want that to continue to grow and be at least over 70% by the time the plan ends in 2025.
So Kevin, after 8 months of work to put together this plan, you look at those goals and you think, what, headache or inspiration?
You know, I think as we've set these goals, we have tried to be pragmatic and actionable. So recognizing that there are specific initiatives and actions tied to each of them, and that we didn't pull these numbers out of the air. That this isn't a plan that just says rebalance air versus cruise, but thinks about actually when cruise growth might be good and when we need more air visitors and when we can accommodate more air visitors. Means that these are ambitious goals, but they should be achievable goals.
All right, so that does it. That's sort of the superficial top line of the National Tourism Plan. For the rest of the day, you'll get a chance to really immerse yourself in the data, in the research, and the strategies and the tactics.
And if you look at the inside back cover of the booklet that's on your table, I know you already looked, but if you look at the inside back cover, you'll actually find a plan on a page. So we set a goal of, both Anthony and I once used to work at Monitor, and everybody talked about how amazing the 1998 Monitor work was. It was also 12,000 pages. So we set a goal of approaching this in a Monitor-like way, but not with a Monitor-like report on the end of it. So we've tried to distill the whole plan down to a single page, and over the course of sessions 2 and 3, we'll take you through all the things on this page that we haven't had a chance to explain to you yet. There's lots more to come, but we wanted to orient everybody to how to think about the plan before we go to a break, which I guess is what we're going to be now.
And when Anthony comes back in 2025, you'll have that booklet with all the things checked off that we got accomplished. Absolutely. All right, we'll take a break now, and then we'll be back in 15 minutes for the second session. Thank you very much.
Yeah.